two just to make sure it all gets put up on YouTube correctly, and then we'll get cracking. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. The time is 12:06 now, so we'll get started with today's public hearing. My name is Ketcher Baden, and I'm on staff with the State Board of Education. And this is the time for the public hearing to provide an opportunity for individuals to express their views or concerns in a public setting on the proposed board rule R7-2-615.01 regarding special education endorsements. Of course, this is a virtual public hearing, and luckily we have a little bit of experience doing that over the last few months, but it is a little bit different than how we would normally do public hearings. So we'll lay out the rules of the road for this afternoon. So bear with me as we kind of go through a lot of this. Some of it was included in those public notices. Some of it wasn't. It's just kind of logistics of how we're going to have to go through today. So I'm going to call the first speaker along with the next two speakers after them, so everybody knows kind of the order that we're going in, and I'll announce the order when we get to the end there so you have an idea. When it is your turn to speak, when I do call your name, staff will try to unmute you, and it looks like everybody's name corresponds with the name that you registered with, so that's helpful. So staff will unmute you when it's your turn to speak if you're not already unmuted, and a box on Zoom will pop up that asks if you want to be unmuted, or it will talk to you and tell you that you're being asked to be unmuted, and you'll have to agree to unmute yourself and begin providing your comments. Now, we understand with technology, not everything works as smoothly as we would like. So after we call on you, we'll pause a few moments to let yourself unmute yourself, especially if we see you here on Zoom and we're just trying to get the technology lined up. But after those few moments, if we're still struggling, we can't hear from you, we'll move on to who's next. But don't worry, we'll come back to you at the end of the hearing, or maybe we'll plug you in somewhere later if you're able to figure it out, so you still have time to submit your comment. Each speaker is going to have no more than 3 minutes for their public comment. As a courtesy, you'll hear a timer go off, and I'll be having it here, and I'll turn my sound off, and you'll have the timer go off. At the end of that 3 minutes, we'll ask that you conclude your remarks, and out of respect for everybody's time and everybody else who wants to provide a public comment, we do reserve the right to halt your remarks and mute you if you don't conclude after we request you from staff. I don't think that's going to happen, and I think we can all be respectful. We haven't really had to do that before, so hopefully we can keep that streak going. We had 8 people signed up to speak today, and I see we're still dragging one, so it looks like we got about 7 here, though. And we anticipate everybody who submitted a request to speak will have the opportunity to provide one, but just as a caveat that we give at all these public hearings that I'm required to give, we do reserve the right to limit the number of presenters if something unforeseen happens. Again, we don't think that's going to be an issue today, and we want to hear from everybody, but I just have to kind of give that caveat. Board staff, myself, we do not respond to comments made during the public hearing. Remember, this is solely a time for you to be heard, but we do record the meeting, as I mentioned earlier, and we provide a summary also to the board to follow up and provide the board with any information on issues that are raised during the public hearing. The chat is available, but we would just ask that you leave that for any logistical questions or issues that you may have that we're trying to navigate. Try to keep all the public comments relating to the item as part of your 3 minutes, just so we have it buttoned up and tight to provide to the board. And again, like I said a couple times, just note the meeting is being recorded and it's also being live streamed. So just be mindful of that and be respectful in your remarks. I don't have to cut somebody off because they're being profane or disrespectful. Again, we haven't had to do that. I don't think it'll happen, but got to put it out there and want to keep our streak alive of having respectful board meetings, public hearings, that is. And then finally, just a few things to note on the proposed rule itself, which this information is largely found with the executive summary that was provided to the board at the October 26th board meeting and also at the board meeting in September. But just wanted to provide some background on it before we jump into the rule. And that's that the rule proposal is based on a similar special education certification endorsement that was adopted by the board earlier this year at the suggestion of Superintendent Hoffman. And the intention with both of those proposals is to provide a pathway for currently certified full-time teachers to teach students with disabilities. And the proposal that's in front of us today was developed in cooperation with the Arizona Schools for the Deaf and Blind, the Exceptional Student Services team at the Department of Education, and the department's certification team, which also put out a survey to the field. The Certification Advisory Committee, which is an advisory committee to the board made up of educators in K-12 and higher education across the state, vetted the proposal at multiple public meetings and recommended the proposal to the board. And the board began that rulemaking process at its September board meeting. At the October 26th board meeting, which is just a few days from now, the board will receive an update on the rule, which really just means it'll be provided public comments. And of course, like I said, a recording of this meeting, and public comments can also be given at that October 26th board meeting, much in the same fashion that this is working here today. And then the board may adopt the rule as early as its December 14th meeting, but it could adopt it later. It could adopt it at its January or February or what have you, any of those meetings. So that's just a little bit of background before we jump into the rule. And after that, you probably won't hear anything from me except calling out the names. So the order of speakers that we have today, and like I said, I'll call the first three, but I'll list out all 8 that we have right here, which is first will be Tariq Williams. Then we'll have Ashley Moon, then Colin Wong, then William Kohler, though I don't think Bill's with us, then Garrison Sennegeni, which I'm really sorry about, and Sonje Hong, then Lupson, and then Christina Rivera. So that means first up is Tariq Williams, followed by Ashley Moon, and then Colin Wong. So Tariq, you are up, and I will make sure, yes. Okay, so Tariq, you're up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this time. Once again, as my name has been stated, my name is Tariq Williams. And once again, thank you for the time. I really appreciate being here. And I just want to start with introducing myself a little bit more in the fact that I'm an orientation and mobility instructor in the field, as well as a rehabilitation teacher for the blind, certified in both of those. I am also active in the community and being a part of pedestrian advisory committee, as well as the coordinating streets council for the city of Tucson. And I think it's really important to be active in multiple facets of your community and being involved. And education as well is extremely important part of that. And so in terms of working with the blind and visually impaired, um, getting my master's degree and learning more as much as I possibly could about the field to be the best instructor I possibly could, I would say some of the things that really I would say concern and worry me about what we have here is, and I understand that we have a need. I completely do, that we need more instructors and teachers to be there, but we want to make sure that we keep these expectations high for our students, as well as for our instructors for all these different areas. One of the things that kind of concern me is the fact that we talk about the 45 hours being what we're looking for in terms of practicum hours. And I find that one like quite low for sure in terms of what I know that all the other work that individuals have put into the field in terms of teachers of the visually impaired or orientation mobility instructors and across and I could go on. And so with that being said, I worry about, watering down a little bit and the discrediting of those fine individuals who are already out there. I probably think there might be other solutions out there in terms of what we can do for that situation. But I really think it's important to make sure that we really keep those expectations high Braille is super important. Make sure that Braille efficiency for these blind and visually impaired students are out there so that they're able to get the education that they need, proper cane traveling skills for the blind and visually impaired, making sure that these individuals have been through these different situations, been around blind and visually impaired people, as well as studied and been able to really look at some of these different situations. And I just want to let's kind of end a little bit by saying with the fact that I understand that there is a need and I understand that it exists. But I really want to make sure that we're keeping expectations high, not only for our students, but for our instructors as well. We want to make sure that we're trying to give our students and kids who are out there the best as much as we can as possible. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Tariq. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, and you can hang around, Tariq, or you can pop off, whatever you'd like to do. Next up, we have Ashley Moon, followed by Colin Wong and William Kohler. So Ashley, you're up.
Hi, my name is Ashley Moon, and I'm speaking to you from the National Federation of the Blind. I'm the co-chair of the Education Committee for Arizona. And I just want to talk about the fact that blind people were not consulted in the creation of this endorsement, and they're a key player in the discussion. So I heard at the beginning a lot of groups were listed that were part of creating this endorsement, but blind people themselves were not listed. So that's a frustration that I have, and I think it's really important that people who are going to be teaching blind kids and visually impaired kids have that information and authentic experience of blind people incorporated into what they're learning and what they're bringing to the table when they're teaching our kids. I'm also president of the Arizona Division of Parents of Blind Children, and I have concerns from parents as well that, the services they get for their kids are really important, and they need to make sure that the teachers that are teaching their children have adequate experience. And I just feel that this is going to, as was said by the prior speaker, this is going to water down the experience and the authenticity that these teachers are giving to our children. So I have a lot of concerns about that. And I just want to make sure that we are looking for bigger solutions that are more efficient for the problem that we're trying to solve. Because I agree that we do need to get more teachers for blind kids. Obviously, it's a big problem and we're lacking that. But we definitely need to come up with a better solution that is more all-encompassing and includes blind people as a part of that discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for your time, and thank you for providing comments today. Next up, I lost my list. Next up is Colin Wong, followed by William Kohler and Garrison Sennegeni. Colin, go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity. Again, my name is Colin Wong, and I am here representing Savvy Services for the Blind as a National Orientation Mobility Certificate holder with my master's degree. I understand that getting a master's degree is a lot of work, but I do, from my extensive years of working with blind students and other students with disabilities, I understand that there is a huge separation between the specializations needed to work with students with disabilities compared to working in the general ed classroom. And working with students who are blind, there's so many things that we need to take into consideration, including their visual impairment, the skills that they will need for the rest of their lives, specializations, working with IEPs. I've been in a lot of IEPs with students, and unfortunately, many of them are concerned about the expectations and the skill level of their TVI or O&M instructor. I understand that there is a teacher shortage, not only with teachers of the visually impaired or O&M instructors, but teachers across the board. I think this is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And I don't want to also take away teachers that are qualified to teach in the general education system. The adults that I'm currently working with who have grown up going through public education and have worked with TVI and O&M instructors, the main concern that I see whenever I'm assessing them, even if they've been in the public education system for 5, 10, or even more years, I can tell that they're not ready to either go to college or they're not vocationally ready to be employed. And their main feedback that they've told me was that the skills that they have been taught have not gotten them far enough in life. And the big concern is obviously we understand that a big concern is availability, but the second, and I would say even larger concern, is the skill level of the teachers. I'm not saying that the skill levels of the teachers right now are not adequate. I'm worried that if the consumer feedback that I hear with the students I'm teaching every day right now are concerned about the skill levels that they have been taught so far, if we diminish those expectations any further, then it's going to set these students even further behind with college and with being vocationally employed. And I think seeing our test scores that our blind students are having in schools right now, I believe it does speak that we need more teachers. It also speaks that we need to make sure that there are more qualified teachers and not bringing less qualified teachers in there. The last comment I want to say is that I do know that there is currently a bill being set into that unfortunately is pending because of COVID, but it is going through legislation. It's called the Braille Literacy Bill, and the intention is to bring in another nationally recognized certifying body that will allow more qualified teachers to come in. At the moment, ACRVP and AAR are currently the certifying body that is allowing professionals in that demonstrates quality instructors. There is another nationally certifying body called the National Blindness Professional Certification Board. Again, that is working its way through legislation, but I feel like with having another certifying body allowing more qualified teachers to teach in the state of Arizona will fix the teacher shortage issue. And I just don't want to be in a place where our teachers are not ready to teach the extreme needs that blind students and other students with disabilities may need in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you for your time. Next up, we have William Kohler, followed by Garrison Sennegeni and Sonje Hong. I think I got a message. It doesn't look like Mr. Kohler has joined us yet, but I got a message he might be joining us soon. So that means Garrison, we'll go to you, and then we'll probably have to come back to Mr. Kohler at the end. So Garrison, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Go ahead.
All right, cool. So Yat A, hello, my name is Garrison Sennegeni. I'm a doctoral candidate in the Department of Disability and Psychoeducational Studies at the University of Arizona. Prior to my doctoral studies, I worked as an itinerant teacher of the visually impaired on the Diné Nation in northeastern Arizona. And I suggest the proposed visually impaired endorsement be tabled with the implementation of more transparent and inclusive survey practices and to increase the 15 semester hours of courses in visually impaired education. In the spirit of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, parents and students are at the heart of educational decision making. Yet in the August 2020 survey report of proposed visually impaired and deaf hard of hearing endorsements, it must be inferred that parents and students are among the other stakeholders. Furthermore, only 15% of the 136 participants, approximately 20 others, beyond special education teachers, directors, human resource supervisors, and superintendents and principals were represented in the survey. This is also true for special education teacher responses. Approximately 47 DHH, VI, or other special educators in the state of Arizona to speak to two very different endorsements within the same survey. As the survey was instrumental in soliciting feedback on proposed VI and DHH endorsements, it is evident the top-down approach of this survey further marginalizes the voices of Arizona's parents and deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision, and deafblind students. Secondly, students with sensory disabilities, students who qualify for special education service, special education deafness and visual impairment categories are a heterogeneous population, often encompassing overlapping disability categories. To meet the needs of such a diverse population of students, educators must be adequately, pedagogically, and practically trained to meet the needs of this unique population of students. The proposed 15 semester hours only encompasses 2 of 9 expanded core curriculum areas in which educators of students with visual impairments have been trained to teach students, often learned incidentally by their sighted non-disabled peers. As it currently stands, the proposed 15 hours compromises the ability of future endorsed educators to meet the unique and individualized needs of Arizona's blind and visually impaired students. In summary, I asked the board to consider attaining a more representative sample of Arizona stakeholders regarding the proposed endorsement and future endorsements before proceeding further. I also asked the board to consider increasing the number of semester hours and closely consult with Arizona's experts, the current visual impairment teacher education program directors, and of course, essential stakeholders, Arizona's parents and deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision, and deafblind students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Garrison. You had 25 seconds left, so you gave everybody some more time back. Next is Sonje Hong, followed by Carl Lupson, and then Christina Rivera.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sonje Hong, and I'm the director of the Visual Impairments Teacher Training Program here at the University of Arizona. I suggest that the board would consider the table the currently proposed endorsement plan. First, the specific plans for the endorsement proposal has not been shared. For example, it is not clear how the proposed semester hours is equivalent to that of the university system's units or credit hours. And also, it is difficult to understand who will be the provider of these 15 hours of courses. As it currently stands, the certification requires that the accredited university programs be the provider of these courses. Yet in this endorsement plan, such specificity is not shared. Second, proposals like this where there is big implications for long term for many stakeholders and constituents. It is important that there would be a sufficient amount of research, including an approach for obtaining feedback from people who are involved. That being said, for example, the reports of Garrison Sennegeni previously spoken indicates that the number of parents and teachers represented in the survey is very limited. Also, there does not seem to be any research conducted to find out the long-term effects of the proposed endorsement plan against the current certification program. More specifically, we do not know how it would complement each other and what kind of effects will it have for the quality of services for children with visual impairments. There are too many unknown factors at this time, and it would be very difficult for me to understand the specific scope of this plan as well as its long-term effect. Therefore, I would advise that the board would consider to table the decision and have an opportunity to accept further feedback and conduct systematic research on the topic of endorsement and certification and have an opportunity to study the long-term effects for many stakeholders, including the children of students with visual impairments in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Just a couple seconds to spare on that. You guys are doing pretty good on your 3 minutes. Next up, we have Carl Lupson, followed by Christina Rivera. And Mr. Kohler, I see that you joined. We called you earlier, but I see that you joined us. So you'll be after Christina. So we'll go Carl, Christina, and then Mr. Kohler. So Carl, away.
Hi, I'm Carl Lupson, and I'm a professor at the U of A, but I'm also the head of the Department of Disability and Psychoeducational Studies. We're a large department in the College of Education with 8 accredited programs in special education, in school counseling, and in school psychology. And our program directors for those programs are nationally recognized experts who help us provide world-class training for Arizona teachers and nationally and internationally. And I understand that our VI and DHH program directors were invited to provide input on this endorsement through the stakeholder survey. But I'm concerned that the endorsement was created without a broader and deeper collaboration with our internationally renowned experts. You know, aside from ASU's fledgling program, undergraduate program in visual impairment, our department at the U of A has the only VI and DHH teacher certification programs in the state of Arizona. So we have these wonderful, strong programs that are accredited by their respective national organizations, and we have international experts in visual impairments and deaf and hard of hearing training who could have provided really valuable insight to the development of this endorsement. In addition, there were really serious issues of recruitment, retention, financial aid, and program design that our program directors need to solve so that we can assist Arizona teachers in obtaining the training necessary to get these endorsements. So in summary, I know that ADE can't wait for large universities like ours to move on these issues. But what I'd ask is that our VI and DHH program directors be more closely involved in the development and rollout of this current endorsement if possible, and that ADE commit to more significant involvement of our teacher education program directors in future efforts so that we can be ready when the time comes to do right by Arizona teachers.
Thank you, Carl. Next is Christina Rivera, followed by William Kohler. Christina?
Yes, hi. I'm Christina Rivera. I'm the director of the Special Education Deaf and Hard of Hearing program at the University of Arizona. I have 25 years of experience in the field. I understand that the need for teachers is great, particularly teachers of students with special needs, but we want to make sure that teachers are properly trained. I could be in support of the DHH endorsement, but I'm asking that the board take additional time to consider this change. My concerns with the current proposal, a couple of concerns that I want to mention here is, first of all, the 3 years of K-12 teaching experience. It's not specified that this experience needs to be with deaf and hard of hearing students. The intensive and explicit instruction needed by deaf and hard of hearing students is quite different from typical general education practices. That foundation in general education practices is important, but specialized skills are needed. 15 semester hours is insufficient to develop these specialized skills. Neither of these requirements meets the requirements by the Council on Education of the Deaf, which is our accrediting body, and not supported by the Council for Exceptional Children's standards. From the university perspective, as Dr. Lupson mentioned, certification changes affect our programs. Whether or not folks choose to meet the endorsement requirements through our program which again is the only program that prepares teachers of deaf and hard of hearing students. We need to align our courses to meet state requirements for certifications and endorsements. As an online program, we have students from all over the country, but our priority is to support statewide recruitment and retention efforts here in Arizona so that deaf and hard of hearing children and their families get the services they need from qualified teachers. I ask that the board take more time to decide on this endorsement so that we can be involved in the development on the front end rather than react to the changes on the back end. I participated in the survey that was used as the foundation for this endorsement, but I haven't been involved since. I would also ask the board to take into consideration the cultural impact of this endorsement by seeking out the perspectives of those in the deaf community, particularly deaf and hard of hearing practitioners and leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Sorry, I'm taking notes here, so I'm a little slow in the uptake sometimes. Okay, so I think that leaves us with Mr. William Kohler. So if you're there with us now, whoops, sorry about that. You are up, sir.
Okay, thank you, Catcher. The name is William Kohler. I am recently retired as the Assistant Superintendent of the Arizona State Schools for Deaf and Blind. I have 40 years experience in the field as a teacher, orientation mobility specialist, a principal, and a superintendent. Over those 40 years, one of the constant laments that we had was finding and keeping trained personnel. That problem is not new, and it has continued to plague us over the years. I think the important piece for us to understand here is that the endorsement option, called an endorsement option, is really not new to Arizona. There's always been a third option to look at coursework that would allow an individual who did not have a degree from a university or from another state to come in and present credentials that show training in certain courses and be able to be certified. That is only changed in some of the contented area that is now in the recommended endorsement. And there's a couple of things in there that I think would need to be reconsidered. However, the endorsement option widens the opportunity for quality training to go to teachers in the field. And as the current recommendation speaks to, it's looking for already certified teachers who have an interest in gaining additional specialized training for children with visual impairments. The premise of an endorsement would water down the requirements. I will say from personal experience is absolutely accurate. I do know that there was a survey that went out to all the special directors around the state, and as my previous position had me in communication with many of those directors, they are anxious to find a way to meet the needs of children. They don't have time to wait for another study and another study. Quite frankly, our field has been certainly blessed with a lot of studies. We're still sitting in the same position that we have been for many, many years, and that is, how do we find people that want to do this work? An endorsement would allow an already trained teacher in a local school district who has a vested interest in the students in that local school district to achieve additional training, specialized training, specific training, quality training, including a quality supervised teaching experience, and allow them to continue their work in the school district. We know these people exist because the itinerant teachers that I worked with over the years would come back and say, we have people that want to be trained as TVIs. They don't have the desire or the capacity to enter into a traditional university training program. We know that the need is there. I started some research with a conversation with former board president Tim Carter, and extensive research has been provided to the state board office. Catcher has a good amount of that information already, including meetings with the certification staff. There is information that would support an endorsement, and I strongly encourage it with 2 small changes in some of the language. Thank you. I take it that was my 3 minutes. Is that correct?
It was, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Catcher.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kohler. And so
Yes, sir.
first, want to put out an apology to a few of you for the names that I pronounced incorrectly, including Mr. Kohler, Carl Lupson, and also Garrison. I won't even try to do it again because I tried to take notes on how to do it correctly. So I apologize to all three of you for that. The other thing, so that is all the folks who registered to speak today. So we'll probably wrap up here, but I did want to just put in one request for folks, which is that when you all registered to speak today, you provided an email address to us. If that's a good email to contact you at, then no action required for you. If there is an alternate email address that you would like to be contacted at, then you can reach out to us afterwards. Our email address for our larger emails is inbox, INBOX at azsbe.az.gov. You can email us there. You can provide public comments there as well. And that email address, I think, was part of the public hearing notice, both for this hearing and also for the October board meeting. So public comments can be provided there. And also if you have a different contact information you'd like, I think we would find that helpful to have. So because that's wrapping up, I just, on behalf of the board, want to thank everybody for being here today, for taking your time out on a middle of a workday on a weekday, and hope you all have a great rest of your week. And you can tune in to that October 26th board meeting on Monday, the same way we live stream them on YouTube. And if you want to submit a public comment there, you could do that as well. But like I said, we will provide this recording to the board members as well as any written public comments. And we'll go on from there and see what the board has to say, and if any direction is provided and what next steps are. So appreciate it again. Thank you for your time and hope you have a good rest of your week.